Hello, everybody, and welcome to CELPIP Live. My name is Brandy, and we're really happy to have you all here with us today. Before we kickstart the show, we are going to start off with a trivia question. So let's have a look at that now. Our trivia question for today is, what is the official word for the sound of leaves and trees rustling in the wind? If you think you know the answer, please put it in the live chat. And if you're right, we'll feature it at the end of the episode. For now, let's go start our show. If you're new here, CELPIP Live is an interactive YouTube series. It's designed to support all of you who might be out there preparing for the CELPIP test. So we come together every second Thursday morning to give you some instructional videos and some fun practice activities to do. Today's episode is all about speaking. And before we invite our very special guest to join us, I wanted to share a little video clip of him with you, just so you can see him in action. And I think you might just recognize both his voice and his face. Let's have a quick look now.
Can you believe that announcement today? I mean, I'm still reeling.
I think everyone in the office is in shock. I mean, 3 weeks is not enough notice that we're moving the whole office all the way across town.
All right, let's welcome to our show the one, the only, Brian Anderson.
Very excited by this opening graphics. That was cool.
Hello, Brian, and welcome. First of all, I have to say and let our viewers know, I've never actually met Brian in the real world, and this is our first chance to collaborate together in live time. It's exciting.
All virtual, 100% virtual.
I have to say, I feel like I know you already because as an online instructor for the CELPIP test, we use that exact video to do practice together in session. So,
oh my goodness. Yeah,
the voice is there.
The voice is there. Yes, I get to do a lot of the instructions too. So when you hear, now click next, that's the face that's saying it.
That's the face. Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you with us, Brian. And before we get into some speaking strategies, can you tell us a little bit about your background? So what sort of has your career trajectory done for you to take you to the CELPIP world?
Oh my goodness. I always laugh that when you go to high school and they say, this could be your career, the paths change so many ways along. So I have a degree in computer science, math, and physics. I also have a great love for acting and performing. So I've been doing that for 25, 30 years. I work as an improviser. It's a type of theater where you don't have a script. You're just making things up as you go along. Been doing that as well for 25 or 30 years. And another place you may recognize me from, the room I'm in right now, is over at Science World, the Science Museum here in town. So I also get to work with a lot of the show presenters there and training them on how to do different things. Just through some of my theater connections, people had invited me to audition at CELPIP, and it's just been a great relationship getting to learn new things every time. I find every session we record too, I did not know that fact.
Having your background in theater as an improv actor and also your wealth of experience as a public speaker as well, working at Science World and such too, I think it just makes you the perfect guest speaker for today to give us tips about how we can all be better speakers. Because again, as an instructor myself, working with a lot of test takers to get them ready for the CELPIP speaking, they have a lot of nerves and concerns about how they're going to perform, which makes sense. And an actor is the best person to give us tips on how we can eliminate some of those concerns, I'm hoping.
Oh, for sure. And I just want to stress too that actors have those same kind of nerves. Like, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome. Everyone else is more confident than I am, but recognizing that most of us are faking it as we go along, and it's perfectly fine to do that.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it. I think that's great advice. Before we get into some actual skills practice, I just wanted to give our listeners a quick overview of what the CELPIP speaking test is all about, as we likely have some newcomers online here today. So when you take your speaking test, for our viewers, you will be in a testing room. You have 8 different speaking questions that you'll answer. And when you answer those questions aloud, you're actually speaking into a microphone. You're recording your answers, and those recordings that you make are sent out later on to a human rating team. And they are tasked with assessing your ability to perform in 4 key areas. And when we think about speaking, I think the most obvious components are all literally about that speech delivery. So Brian and I are going to start off, more Brian than me, I'm just here for the ride, to talk first about pronunciation. A lot of my students are concerned because they have accents, and they always are worried that that's going to affect people's ability to understand them clearly. I always tell them, no, accents are not the issue. Pronunciation is what we need to work on. So Brian, with your experience, what might our students do as they're practicing at home to really clarify their pronunciation and their enunciation? What would you advise?
I think some things is pace, like really take things a little bit slower as you go through. I think it's a natural thing with nerves and nervousness that we tend to speak a little bit quicker. And just think of that, leave a little bit of white space between the words. As an actor, we sometimes talk about really relish the word, like it's a delightful word. Let's make sure we hear every letter as we go through. Another thing that can be easy to have happen to you is to kind of lose the end of the word. So if we're very clear in our enunciation at the beginning, if a word like education, we might say like education, and you lose a little bit of that towards the end. So really think of driving all the way through that word, that I'm really excited by the opportunity to share some education. But yeah, you're hitting every beat as you go through.
Excellent. Yeah. And I noticed too, sometimes when I've done some practice with my own test takers, it's sometimes as we lose the endings of those words, as you've just said, all of a sudden the one word blends into the next word and there's no distinction between them. And that's what makes it difficult to actually understand. And that's what we mean by pronunciation's not clear. That's an excellent piece of advice. Think of ending off the words that you're starting, right?
I think
Great.
related to that as well is the space between sentences. So sometimes one word will blend or one sentence and you don't have that clear. A tip I heard from one of my acting instructors years ago is in your mind, just say the punctuation mark aloud. So as we're going at, hello, I really enjoy, comma, education, period. So you're probably not going to say it out loud. That would sound weird. But just taking that moment to speak it in your mind naturally creates that little bit of space, that little bit of breakup.
Right. Because again, pausing is an effective way to communicate when you know how to do it right. So just taking a beat between those sentences, of course, will help us hear the words and the beginnings, which I think blends nicely to our next little element of speaking I was hoping you could help us with today. It's all about intonation. And for our viewers that aren't sure what I mean by intonation, I guess in general terms, it's simply when the voice goes up and it goes down. And we use intonation naturally when we learn how to do it well. In order to convey emotion a lot of the time, but also to engage the listener so that they want to hear what we have to say. And also, I think it helps rising and falling of the voice helps the listener to distinguish when one idea begins and ends and when the next idea begins and ends. So Brian, again, as an actor, how would you advise our students practice their intonation and understand when they're doing it well? What would they do at home to practice this tip?
I think just looking at a piece of text and deciding for yourself, like, what are the important words as it goes through? What is the meaning of this? And then which of these words can help me convey that? I like to think of it too, if you've ever typed or worked in Microsoft Word, where I can bold or I can underline or I can put something in italics. Like what word as you speaking would be the bold word there? If we're saying it's really important not to set things on fire. Like that I hope that's a good rule in life generally, but so yeah, if fire is your most important word, let's give it a little bit of space, let's give it a little bit of emphasis coming through. As an actor, when we get a script, very often we're going to go through several times. We're going to underline words, we're going to make little notes, we're going to say, okay, I think this is important for that. And I recognize in a CELPIP situation you might not have that kind of time, but even just looking at a sentence and making a choice that's the word that I think is important. That's the word I'm going to give a little bit more space.
Can we practice that right now? We're going to put up just a simple sentence about speaking on screen. Let's see if we can pull that up. I'll ask our producer. There we go. Okay. So Brian, can you demonstrate maybe reading the sentence out loud and maybe use intonation and emphasis in different ways to convey different emotions? And we'll see if our viewers can understand those emotions that you're trying to convey. How would you handle this?
Yeah, this actually reminds me a lot of when we're recording the instructions or different things in the actual tests. We'll often do it 3 different ways to find which fits. So I might look at this. Our speaking skills should improve if we practice regularly. I might say our speaking skills should improve if we practice regularly. Our speaking skills should improve if we practice regularly. So each time it's putting a little bit of a different focus there. Is it about the skills? Is it about us working together? Is it about the fact that it's just practicing? It's a regular thing there, building that habit.
Absolutely. And I can see, and we're about to, for our viewers, we're about to apply some of these tips actually into a real CELPIP test question in a moment. But I can see that as our test takers are practicing their speaking at home, obviously on the test, you're not going to read the same sentence aloud multiple times. But
Yeah.
even as you're practicing at home, just getting your own mindset into the emotion you're feeling and trying to convey, I think with practice, it's going to help you naturally emphasize the words that are really important. And that's, again, another marker of just effective communication. It's going to help your CELPIP score, but in the real world, it just helps people understand what you're trying to convey and emphasize. Excellent tip. And anyone can do this. Anyone can take a sentence and speak it aloud in different ways to play around with that intonation. Great tips.
Yeah. And related to that, I could even say when you're practicing, record yourself. Like just make a choice that I'm just going to emphasize these different words and then play it back and see, oh, when I hear that, what is the meaning that I'm getting out of that? How does it sound different to me?
Right, right. And that's another big piece of the puzzle is understanding what the emotion is. This is where a lot of my own test takers struggle with. We've done some practice, but this is helpful for them. You don't just say it for the sake of saying it. You have to have the intention behind it, right? So that's going to help you do it more naturally. Perfect. Okay. So these are elements of your presentation skills. On the CELPIP scoring system, these factors, I'll call them, fall under the category of listenability. That is one of 4 categories that the rating team is going to assess you on. And there's lots more to do with your presentation skills. But I wanted to segue into the second of those 4 categories right now, which is all about content details. And this is the real challenge because on your CELPIP speaking test, you usually have only 30 seconds to read the question, start thinking about your main ideas. And then when you're asked to speak out loud into that microphone, you have about 60 seconds usually to fill. And as you might imagine, Brian, that first thing a lot of our test takers say is, oh, not enough time. Like they panic. There's not enough time to think so quickly on the spot. So again, I know as an improv actor, you probably have some tips that will help us think quickly. What would you advise we do there?
A lot of things, the broad term for it is free associating, or just making a list of ideas. So if I'm looking at a question like, tell me about your breakfast, I might quickly write down, okay, breakfast often is things like cereal, it could be eggs, it could be pancakes, the kind of things you might have. Then I might look at, okay, why makes it important? It's the first meal of the day. You need that energy to keep you going. I might look at things I've enjoyed, like taken from your own life. When I was a kid, my mom used to make these really wonderful hash browns or something like that. It's not to say that you're going to get every single one of these things in there, but I find just giving your brain the freedom to say, I'm going to make a list of everything I can think of about this topic. And then it almost brings them to the top of your consciousness. So then when you start to speak, you may have them actually jotted down to help remind you, or it may just be the actual act of free associating, making that list makes it easier to remember and draw on those.
Yeah, perfect. And what you're saying right now is already resonating with some of our viewers. Kofo Warola has already just put in our live chat here about making a list of ideas, and he's given it a big thumbs up. That is exactly, I believe, what Brian is talking about. And if you've taken one of my webinars, it's what I tell you to do too. Make a small list. And it has to be short, right, Brian? For the test, it has to be short because we've got 30 seconds only. But it's good advice to do some free associating. Can we practice that skill really quickly just to demonstrate to our viewers more what free associating is like? What can we have a quick topic and then you and I can bounce ideas back and forth just about starting points and where we might develop. Do you have a topic in mind we could do that with? Uh-oh, looks like Brian is frozen. Hang on a second. All right, so viewers, looks like we have lost Brian. Let's see if we can get him back. This happened last week where we had a little bit of a tech glitch. So we'll just wait for him back. But in the meantime, what I'll do is just finish off what I was saying. And I hope in the meantime, we can grab Brian back into the episode. So again, free associating is, as he was talking about, is grabbing that main idea and just thinking about personal connections. When you're able to connect personally to a topic, generally speaking, you're able to start thinking about ideas that really did happen to you. And as he says, they're more at the foreground or forefront of your mind. And as it comes time to speak, you are able to add those into the response. So I tell you what, while we're waiting for Brian, and I really hope we can grab him back on the show here, while we're waiting for him, I'm going to just, oh, we have a comment, sorry, from our producer to say, hold on a moment, we'll try to get Brian back into the session. While we're doing that, I wonder if maybe at the very least we can share the CELPIP test question that we are going to workshop together. Brian and I are going to demonstrate how you can use some of these connecting of ideas together to think of ideas. So in the meantime, if maybe we could put the test question on screen and at least our viewers can read it through while we're waiting, with the hopes that Brian can rejoin us. Okay, here it is here. All right, I'll go ahead and read it out loud. You might recognize the question to a degree. This is taken from a speaking task 6, which is called dealing with the difficult situation. It is a role play situation, so it lends itself very, very nicely to this notion of free associating and putting your life details into order. On the actual test, you would have 60 seconds in this case to read through the question on screen. It gives you some background details, and then you have to make a decision. So I'll read aloud the situation. This one says, you work in a pet store. A couple comes in to buy a pet. The wife would like to buy a ferret. She thinks they are friendly and playful. The husband would rather buy a fish. He says that they are independent and easier to take care of. So you can see those two options right below that. And again, during this prep time, you would want to pick one of those options to support. You cannot support both of them. You have to choose just one. In both cases, you are indeed going to be talking to the couple, but you're either going to explain to them that they're going to buy the ferret, or you're going to explain to them that they're going to buy the fish. And it would take, I would argue, about 30 seconds to read through this question. It would give you about another 30 seconds or so to start thinking about reasons why your chosen animal is the best one. All right, so I'm going to pause there. And we're hoping that we can get Brian back on board. And if not, we'll have to decide quickly how we're going to proceed with the episode. I'm happy to go on and demonstrate on my own, but it would be so much more fun to do this with Brian, especially with his skill set. And while we're doing that, Juliana has left us a comment in our live chat talking about how on the day of the test, it's very difficult to think of ideas quickly. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely frustrating. The more that we practice the skill, and hopefully with some of the tips that we're going to share with you as well, hopefully that's going to be a lot easier. Okay, we'll give it just another few seconds. And then if Brian's not able to return, I'll go on and demonstrate at least for one of these ideas. We've gotten some tips from Brian anyway. So at the very least, hopefully we'll be able to put his tips into good practice. We'll just give it a minute. This might be a good time too, if any of you have any questions about the speaking test, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll answer them quickly as we're waiting. Okay, good. Oh, we do have a great question from Yash here. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about the way your speaking test is evaluated. So the speaking test, you have 8 questions to answer. You will be given a different score on all 8 of those tasks. The speaking test is assessed by human raters. That's one group of raters. The writing test is a completely different pool of raters. There are human raters as well as AI combined just for the writing. So there you go. Yay!
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. And you know what, Brian? I was improvising. I was taking a page from your book and I thought, well, the show must go on somehow. So I was ad-libbing and keeping us going. But I'm happy you're back.
You're back.
We had some great questions and comments coming in from our viewers anyway in the live chat. So it was really wonderful to answer those now and we can proceed. Yeah. And look at this. You're being welcomed back by our audience. So they're so happy to see you. All right. So while you were taking a quick break, Brian, I went ahead and I shared with our audience the question that you and I are going to workshop together right now to put into practice these thinking skills. So again, if we could just pull that question up on screen one last time, just for Brian. So in a nutshell, you and I are going to imagine that we're talking to this couple, we're role-playing this out. We have to make a decision on which pet makes the better choice for them. So it's either going to be the ferret or it's going to be the fish. It can't be both. So Brian, as I'm the host of the show, I'm going to be polite and offer you the first choice. Which of those two animals are you going to support for practice today?
Oh my goodness, I have both a fish and a ferret at home. I'm going to go ferret.
Okay, I was hoping you'd say that because I don't know much about ferrets and I was hoping to do the fish. Perfect. Okay. So again, I don't want to mislead the viewers. On the test, you have to pick one animal only and support only it. But for practice purposes, we're going to sort of do both just to get us all thinking. So Brian's going to support the ferret. Can we have a quick picture of the ferret on screen? Because I'm wondering if all of our viewers know what a ferret looks like. Yeah, there he is. Yeah, it's not a very common pet. So if you've never seen a ferret, this is what it looks like exactly. And you have one of these at home?
I actually have 2 of these at home. My kid decided they wanted to try a ferret. So there's one, they're a little bit smelly. So one of them is actually named Stink. And the other one is named Maximum Overdrive because he runs around a lot.
Likes to go around. Perfect. So you're in a good position since you have this pet at home. You're going to draw on your own experience, as you were talking about with that free association, to think of reasons why it's a good pet. I've never had a ferret or a fish, but I know what a fish is, as our viewers would as well. So I think it'll be pretty easy for me to think of reasons why the fish would make a better pet talking to this couple. So again, on this Speaking Task 6 roleplay, you have 60 seconds total prep time, but we're just going to assume we've taken 30 seconds to read the question and make that choice. So what we're going to do right now, Brian, do you have pen and paper somewhere nearby?
I do.
I got my pen, I got my paper. Yeah. Viewers at home, if you wanted to practice this skill at the same time as Brian and me, we're both going to write down in a moment, in 30 seconds time, we're going to think of 3 general reasons why our chosen pet is the better one. So I'm doing fish, Brian's doing ferret. All of our viewers choose one animal only and see if you can do the same. And we'll do about 30 seconds. We'll have a 30-second time clock. And we're not looking for specific details yet. You won't have time. Just sort of the main general ideas. All right, is everyone clear? Can we pull up a 30-second timer on the clock? All right. Oh, it started. Oh, we better get going. Okay, here we go. Okay. I hope I can read my writing back. Oh. Okay. And that's it. Okay. So again, you have 60 seconds total, but we just did 30 seconds, assuming we've taken some time to think it through. All right. So as soon on the real test, when that 30 seconds is done, you would hear a little automated voice say through the headset, "Start speaking now," at which point you would deliver the answer for 60 seconds. So before we go to the actual answer, Brian, can you and I go back and forth and just share what main ideas we came up with? So for the ferret, how would you explain it's a good pet?
I had on my list here, they're very cute. It's quite a unique pet. Not a lot of other people have these. They're very playful. They can be quite affectionate, so they're nice to have around. They take a little bit of work, which is actually a good way to develop responsibility, both for yourself or if it's like a child or someone who's looking after it, they're developing those skills. And also that there's some great ferret rescue organizations. So there's a lot of ferrets who need homes, and you could be doing a good thing in the world.
Okay, so Brian, the very experienced improv actor, has come up with what, about 6 or 7 ideas there. What's his art? When he starts to speak, I don't know if all of those will fit in 60 seconds, but it's such a good free-form list of ideas. And I think one answer leads to another to the next. You know, when I'm doing this and I think of one idea, it often will lead me to the next one. And I could sort of see a chain of events with your ideas. I had time to think of sort of 3 main categories, which is a good starting point. For my fish, I thought it would make the better pet just because it's so small. I'm mindful of people living in tiny apartments these days, so it's small. I thought that would be better for this couple, maybe. I think a fish is pretty cheap. Again, I've never purchased a fish, but when I speak to this, I'm going to suggest that it's not going to cost more than $20 to buy a fish. It's very cheap, and I don't see a lot of ongoing costs. Like, you're not going to give it shots or have it spayed or neutered like you would other animals, things like that. It's also very low maintenance. I mean, a fish, my goodness, it swims in a bowl. There's not much to do with it, right? So I wrote down literally 3 words on my piece of paper, which was small, cheap, and low maintenance. And then when it comes time to develop these into other sort of sentence structures, I'm going to come up with more specific ideas to really sell this feature so that the couple agrees with me and decides that the fish is the better choice. All right. Do our viewers have any other ideas? I'd like to open it up to them just in case. So before Brian and I go on and actually workshop each of these little ideas together, do we have any feedback from our viewers? Let's just have a quick little look and see. Don't be shy. Can we say here that no answer is a bad answer? So cute. I'm assuming, Gerardo, maybe you're talking about the ferret. I don't think fish are very cute myself, but you never know.
I've seen a cute fish.
It depends on the color, maybe. Yeah. I think, Brian, that was one of your ideas, that there's sort of a ferret is cute and cuddly. So that might work.
Yeah.
Yeah, might work. Anybody else want to chime in before we move on? We can always come back as well. No problem there. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yep. That was one of my ideas too. Fantastic. So looks like we are on the same page there. Definitely low maintenance. And I'll mention as an aside that vocabulary is another way to earn a better score on the CELPIP test. So rather than just say easy to take care of, when you say low maintenance, it sounds more sophisticated. That's a better choice. Oh, Vivian, beautification. Check out the vocab here. Love it. Yeah. So you're not just looking at the fish, you're looking at the whole background of the fish tank and how it's going to make the apartment look more beautiful. I didn't think of that, man. That was a great idea. Yeah. And man, I think they're supporting the fish, Brian. I think
very much. I can't make that argument for the ferret. Many times.
Yeah. No damage to house property. And I tell you what, when you're speaking in this situation, you can bring that in for the fish and say, oh, the fish is never going to destroy your apartment or chew up your furniture like a ferret might. So feel free to, yeah, no, the gloves are on. So feel free to sort of put down or oppose that other position and make sure that the focus is on selling your own idea. So you can do it that way too. Good. Yeah. Good. And we're starting to get some specific ideas coming in. Vivian hit on a fantastic point, and this also speaks to Brian's, I think, free association with ideas. When you're given a choice on a test, of course, you're going to select the option that you know more about. So if you don't know what a ferret is, of course, you're not going to select that because it would be difficult to apply that to real life. So yeah, the fish is definitely the easier choice, which is why I'm so glad I'm the one that got that option today. Absolutely. Cool. Oh,
there's no love for the ferret.
Maybe after they hear your answer, you'll sell them on it too, and they'll all go out and inquire. I don't know where you can buy ferrets, but perhaps. Okay, so the next step, this is all the prep stage of what we've done, right? We've read the question, made a choice. You've written down some ideas on a piece of paper in front of your testing computer in the real CELPIP testing room. When it comes time to speak, you have to get really quick and practiced at taking your wonderful ideas, but now verbalizing them. And this is the next piece to practice. So perhaps can we just do one detail at a time for now, Brian, instead of going right to the full response? So do you mind if I'll demonstrate first what I mean? So I don't think I'm explaining myself well. So this is what I mean. So just take one of the ideas. I'm going to start with small. It's the first thing I wrote down. And when I go to speak to that in my actual answer, it might sound something like this. I think the fish makes the better pet because it's so tiny. It fits in a little glass bowl that you can tuck at the end of your coffee table. And if you live in a very small apartment, it's not going to take up very much room. So that's what my idea sounds like when I'm recording. But on my piece of paper, all I wrote down was small. So the practice all of you will need to do at home and get good at is taking that little tiny idea and extending it naturally as you speak. All right, so that's one example. Maybe I'll toss it over to Brian. Can you do one of yours, maybe?
Yeah, so I've got the word cute. And we could say, I mean, if you're looking for a pet, ferrets are one of the most adorable animals you're going to find. They spend their day running around, doing cute, playful things. It's an opportunity to have something that's going to add some surprises and enjoyment to your life.
Nice. And who doesn't want enjoyment in their lives, right? Nice. All right. Let me work on cheap. That was my other idea. So it might sound something like this. Did you know that fish are really inexpensive pets? They won't cost you more than $20 to purchase. And the cost of the fish food is even less, about $15 for a small jar. And you only have to feed the fish once a day. So you're not going to spend a lot of money on the food. And I made that up. I don't know how often fish eat, to be very honest, but it sounded logical to me. So I went ahead with that one day. Hopefully, maybe somebody here knows and can correct me. But when you're making these details up, I think you can have a little bit of creative license with the details. It's logical that you put some fish food there maybe once a day, and that would be enough. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's one of mine. I'll throw it over to Brian again.
I had unique. So when you're talking to your friends, I mean, lots of people have dogs and cats, but if you want to be admired as like a really interesting person, you've got a ferret. You can talk about all these different things. You can start great conversations with people. People are always curious and interested about what happens with this amazing pet that you have.
Excellent. Yeah, it's true. I hadn't thought of that. It's a good conversation starter, isn't it? I own a ferret. Oh, and in the meantime, AO Me Day in our live chat here has confirmed that fish eat just once a day. So I guess I got that right.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that. We're not starving the fish, not today. Okay, my last one was all about low maintenance, and some of our viewers had that idea too. So in my mind, I have to think of an example or two to prove that it's easy to take care of. So how about this? The fish is such a low maintenance pet because you don't have to take it for walks. You don't have to bathe it. It's already swimming around in a little jar of water. You don't even have to take it to the vet if it gets sick. It's pretty self-contained. You can leave the house. I'm stealing this from one of you. You said it earlier. You can leave the house and go out with your friends for supper or a night on the town. And when you come back, your fish is still there safely in the bowl. Perfect. There we go. Yes, Veer Paul, you gave me that idea.
I feel like this is like a 1 versus 10 scenario going on. Whole team on the fish side here.
I think you're right. All right. What was your last one? Maybe pick one more.
I'll go with rescue. I'm going to say, like, there's a lot of ferrets that are looking for homes. They're looking for a place to be adopted. You can make these animals feel very happy and give them a wonderful, warm, and loving home.
Nice. Yeah, you can't really do that with a fish. So that's a good point to make, I would suggest. Yeah, yeah. Whoa, there's another fish one. I love it. Yeah. Everyone's got some great ideas here. So this is the way of thinking. And remember what we said earlier, one idea sometimes leads to the next and leads to the next. So when we see each other's ideas, and this is why we practice as a group, when we study, you see someone else's idea and it gives you a thought that you can then build and develop. And you'll bring that with you to the next test question you have. So this is really good practice on everything. Vivian is complimenting you two here, Brian. Check this out. She's saying nice points on both options. Let's have Vivian there if we can see it live. Anyway, our producer can put that next. Yeah, fantastic. So we both have accolades there. There we go. Yeah.
Yay.
And the CELPIP test is on your side too today. So there you go. All right. So again, we practice sort of individually because I think when you are studying a skill, it's helpful to break it down into manageable chunks. So rather than just start at home with a 60-second timer to deliver the whole answer, sometimes just building one idea at a time and then putting it together is maybe a more manageable way to go. Before Brian and I demonstrate that final piece for you, I did want to spend just a moment talking about your introduction and your conclusion, because this is a role play. And another factor on the CELPIP test you're going to be scored for is called task fulfillment. You have to answer the question specifically and show that you've understood the instructions. And our test question says we are talking to a couple to recommend which pet they should buy. So the very first sentence we say out loud has to establish very clearly that we are indeed talking to this couple. And we are going to very clearly identify the name of the pet or the type of pet that we are suggesting. So it might sound, you don't have to overthink it. It could be as easy as, I suggest you buy the fish. That would be bare bones, but I think we can be a little more creative than that. With the ferret, Brian, can you add a little pizzazz to that? How would you open this role play talking to the couple?
I am so excited to be talking to the two of you, and I have got the perfect pet for you. It is a ferret.
Love it. And did you hear his intonation there and the way his voice kind of got excited and hushed at the end, like he's drawing you in? So again, that's part of the speech presentation we spoke about. You can do lots with the voice to show your excitement and enthusiasm. I have another idea. I do this one in session with my students, so it's already here. I'll share it with you. You are welcome, if you're creative, to make a little bit of license with this. So I'm going to pretend or assume I've already met this couple. I work at this pet shop, sure. I'm going to assume they came in last week and I already know they're looking for a pet. So here's how I might start this. Maybe I know their names even. I might just say, oh, hey, welcome back, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Great to see you again. Now, last week when you were here, you mentioned you weren't sure which pet was right for you. I've been giving it some thought, and I truly think that for your lifestyle, the fish is the better choice. So something like that is so much more interesting than just saying, I think you should buy the fish. Both are clear, yeah. But if you're going for more of that sort of creative or higher level, play around with this at home. Don't get too carried away. We don't want to get too silly or make the introduction 30 seconds long. But if you can have a little bit of a hook, like Brian and I just demonstrated, you're now entering more of an intermediate to advanced level capability. It's just something to think on. Yeah.
The other activities you talk about, what happened just before, what happened just after? Like what's the little history around that?
Yeah. And as long as the ideas are related to the test question, you're okay. Yeah, you can sort of assume some of these details. The last piece to all of this is our conclusion. And Brian, I'm going to let you know that a lot of our viewers do struggle with the perfect conclusion. I find a lot of times they overthink things. A lot of times people insert these really general memorized phrases like, thank you for your time, which isn't appropriate here. So Brian, how would you advise, like thinking about how to end this whole conversation? We've just talked to this couple, outlined why they should buy the ferret or the fish. And then how would we end that, do you think? What would you say?
Always I can think. I immediately, when we were talking of introductions and things, there's an education technique we sometimes talk of. First, you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them what you told them. So it's almost like you're saying the same thing 3 times. Like, I'm going to tell you why ferrets are important. This is why ferrets are important, and that's why I think ferrets are important. It's kind of it's a blocky way of saying it there, but when you come to the end, I think something just like, and that's why I think ferrets would be the perfect pet for you. Like just something simple wraps it up that way. Another framing could be like, what's the next step? What do you imagine the next thing would be? So I think ferrets would be great. Would you be interested in purchasing one? Or like, what's the call to action? What's the, have I made my point here? Are they going to want to do that?
Excellent. I love that. Yeah. I'm thinking as well, like we're working for this question. We are working as an employee in this store talking to this couple. So thinking what you just told us to do, I'm imagining sort of what's going to happen next. And I might just say to them, anyway, give it some thought. And when you're ready to make a purchase, I'll ring you through at the cash. Would that work okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Because I mean, if I don't work at a pet store, I never have. But if I was, I mean, that just seems like a logical way to give good customer service and then finish the conversation, right? Yeah. I left it open-ended though. Maybe I should have mentioned the fish because I'm trying to get them to buy the fish. Either way might work, hey? Give them a little bit of leeway. Think it through. Let me know what you decide. I'll be ready when you are, sort of idea. That's how I'm thinking. All right. That could work. So are we ready to put this all together? We have demonstrated sort of quick thinking for main ideas and supporting details. We've added an intro and conclusion. At home when you're studying, after you've gone through those 3 parts to your response, you are going to want to set a 60-second timer for this question. You are going to want to practice speaking aloud from beginning to end to see how much you can cover in 60 seconds. It does take practice to do this because you might have a ton of ideas like Brian started with. He might not have time to fit those ideas all into, a 60-second question. So as he's speaking, he's going to have to keep an eye on the timer and cut things out as he goes in order to fill the time. That being said, you still have to answer the question fully. Intro needs to be there, at least 2, if not 3 main reasons, each with some supporting details, and a conclusion. That needs to be done to really effectively answer the question. So, Brian, do you want to go first or would you like me to go first?
Well, I can give it a try.
Perfect. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to put a 60-second timer up on screen here. And Brian is going to demonstrate what it sounds like to put all of these stages together. Let's see if we have that 60-second timer. And if not, I will time you on my, oh, there we go. Oh, go.
Oh, it's so great to see the 2 of you again. I was thinking about your question last week. I think a ferret would be perfect for the 2 of you. Ferrets, they're so cute. If you see them running around, I can send you links to some ferret videos, but they're just the most adorable little playful creatures. They're also very unique. If you want to talk to people about your pets, a lot of people have dogs or cats or fish or things like that. But here, you've got some stories about a really interesting, unique kind of creature. Something else that's great is you're doing things for the world. There's a lot of ferrets sitting in rescue organizations. They're looking for homes. By helping out some of these ferrets, You could have amazing, playful, great pets at home and give a ferret a good place to live. We've got lots of accessories that can help with that. So give it some thought. If you're interested, I'll be just over here. Thank you again for coming back.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So on the timer, I was watching very carefully, and that was about a 57-second response, which for our viewers is fine. I need to clarify this because some of our viewers think it has to be 60 seconds on the nose or else it's wrong. That's not the case. That's a misconception. So provided you're using close to 60 seconds, even 54, 55 seconds with lots of detail like Brian's demonstrated, your time score will be accepted. That's under task fulfillment, by the way. And Vivian loves your response, as do I. I'm sure our viewers really appreciate it. And I'm just thinking I should have gone first because now I have to follow Brian. I'm not nervous, not at all. Okay, well, I'm going to see how it goes, and I'm going to see if I can do it in 60 seconds. I'm talking about the fish. So when I see the timer on the screen, I'll begin. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, welcome back. You know, last week when you were here, we were trying to decide which pet would be better for you. And I honestly think the pet fits your lifestyle because you mentioned you live in a 500 square foot apartment downtown. And as you know, the fish is so small. You just put it in the glass bowl and tuck it into your end table and it's out of the way for your enjoyment only. A fish is also really cheap. It's inexpensive to purchase. About $20 will get you a beautiful fish. The fish food only costs an additional $15. And since you only feed the fish once a day on average, your jar of food is going to last a long time. You won't have to run out and purchase additional products for the fish once you're set up. And lastly, your fish is so easy to take care of. Such a low maintenance pet. You don't have to take it for walks. You can go out for long periods in the evening. And when you come back, your fish is still there swimming in its bowl. Anyway, think it through. And when you're ready to decide, I'll be right over here at the cash.
Nailed it right on 60 seconds.
And I will share, as some of you know from my webinars and maybe just from today's episode, I always have lots to say. I'm a real talker and I find it hard to fit details into 60 seconds. I myself actually prefer the 90-second CELPIP speaking questions because I have just a little bit more room to develop. And it's tough. It's tough for me. I'm a CELPIP instructor and Brian is a seasoned actor and public speaker. So time constraints are challenging for everyone. And it just takes real practice to get there. And if you're new to CELPIP starting out, it's probably going to feel terrifying at first when you set this timer at home and try to deliver an answer like we just did. It's just persistence, perseverance. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And you start to develop a feeling, I think, for how much detail you can actually fit in a 60-second response. Brian, any last thoughts on that, just to give some tips?
Yeah, just again, like the more you do it, the more you build up that muscle memory of just what does 60 seconds feel like. And you'll get a sense of, okay, I'm going to use about 7 seconds for my intro. I'm going to use about this much for each of the details. I know when I get to like below 8 seconds, I need to start wrapping up. Something else in terms of the conclusion, I was just reminded on intonation. If you're not sure, I don't have the right words to say, just bring your intonation down a little bit to give a sense of conclusion. And that's why I think it would be the perfect test for you. That's why this is a great pet there.
Yeah. Because the falling intonation always marks or identifies when we're finished with that idea, right? So since it's the last thing you're saying, really letting the voice drop.
Yeah, as opposed to like, that's why I think it's the right pet for you. Almost a question, and we're moving on.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, rising intonation, by the way, makes us feel uncertain, like we're not too sure what we're talking about, and that's not the right approach to this question. You already know what you were trying to get them to do, and you have to be more confident about it. So yeah, very, very well done. Perfect. Well, Brian, I thank you so much for being here. Do we have any questions from our audience before we say goodbye to Brian? Clearly, we can thank him for all of his expertise here. Okay. I don't know if this is more of a question for me, perhaps, than Brian. Yeah. So Sandra's mentioning that she doesn't know what a ferret is. So she's just saying, what would we do then if this happened on a test and we didn't know the word? I should qualify. The reason why today Brian and I went with fish and ferret is because the typical CELPIP test question that did exist on the real test spoke about a dog and a cat. And that question I've workshopped many times in different webinars I've delivered over the past years. So we wanted to do something a little different today, just to give you some unique ideas. So we chose ferret and fish just to be a bit, again, different and creative. On your CELPIP test, it is a test of day-to-day communication. So the ideas there are ideas that you should be able to relate to. I highly doubt you would ever have a ferret as an option on your CELPIP test, not because they're not cute, Brian, but because they're not very common. And for this very reason, there's your pet. Oh my goodness. Is that stink or is that maximum overdrive?
That is maximum overdrive right there.
Right. So again, the ideas on your own test will be more common or relatable to sort of serve the masses, if you will. The test is not going to give you unique ideas like this because it's not trying to trick you up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, look at this. Trailer uppercut says.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed coming out. I love your strategy as well. If you get a word that you're not familiar with, pick the other option. Like it's easy is better than hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, here's a good one. I'll let Brian answer this one. I think we've addressed this today, but let's conclude with it here.
That's kind of a fun one there. Sometimes it's not even so much that specific question, because knowing you've only got 60 seconds, you're probably going to be focusing more on the detail of that question. But a general strategy is if you know, okay, there's likely to be some transactional. It could be something we're in a store, or it could be something talking to a boss or a neighbor or something. Just imagine a couple of scenarios on there. So you've kind of built that world in your mind beforehand. So when you're coming in to think about this, you're not having to create that from scratch, but it's got more of a sense of a grounded place that can also be something that here's something just from my life. If it's talking about you're a waiter in a restaurant, picture a restaurant you go to quite frequently. So that just gives you a little bit more, okay, here's some detail. Here's something I don't have to invent. I know it. If they're talking about your kitchen, it's your kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, during the prep time, because you already know these details, you don't really have to spend any time thinking about those, because when it comes time to speak, you're going to draw those in automatically anyway. So those precious, say, 30 seconds of prep time, this is the time to think of the actual ideas that you are associating to this background that you've created. So it's kind of all hand in hand association wise. I do, again, it's my learning style, but I find that this approach that Brian's just described and what Juliana is asking about, it works better for me as well. And I didn't tell you this at the beginning of the show because I didn't want to put pressure on myself, but I have a little bit of improv and theater background myself, not near as much as Brian. I'm not a professional actress, but I've done a lot of theater through school and so on. And I always felt too that coming into a situation already with this background in my mind, so I'm there in the scene, it just allows me to think of ideas to flesh out the situation and to make it more interesting. It's just so much easier to do when you already have that background in your mind. So it's something that some of you might want to play around with at home for sure. Yeah. And we chose, it's a 30-second, not 30-minute, but 30-second prep time. We knew what you meant there. You're saying, is it possible to write down ideas and still max out? I'm not too sure. Do you mean max out for time? Like, I'm not too sure what you mean. Maybe I can clarify. So the 30 seconds of prep time, I would say if you can even get down the main ideas. And for me anyway, they're just a few words. I didn't do a huge list like Brian had time to do. I don't know how you did that, seriously. But even just a few words, like me, I had like small, cheap, low maintenance. And in my mind, I guess I was already thinking of some specific examples of that. If you have time to write some details in, then yeah, go for it. But I think as long as you've got those main ideas there, you should be able to then develop them verbally when you come to speak and draw in those examples. So it's kind of a different approach there. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Gatam is asking us about another aspect of the assessment for speaking. So clearly, you know a thing or two about how you're going to earn a better score. So one thing we didn't get into today at all, just for time's sake, really, is all about your sentence structure and your grammar. These skills, by the way, are still going to be assessed under the same category as your pronunciation and your intonation. All of these skills are under the listenability section of the rating checklist. So 4 key areas. We've looked at content, your vocabulary is scored, listenability skills, of which sentence structures fall into, and then task fulfillment. So your time and following your instructions and so on. So yes, the more you're able to demonstrate longer, more complex structures as you speak, and the more variety you can also demonstrate, generally the stronger the score will be there under listenability. So best advice, try not to just talk in short, simple sentences all the way through. And Brian, when you were speaking, I noticed all of your use of transitions. They were so well done. Like, oh, also, like it doesn't have to be over the top complex because it's somewhat casual. You're talking to a customer. But you notice that Brian, and I hope I did too. I don't remember, because when you're speaking, you don't often think it through. But yeah, when you're linking your ideas together and creating these longer structures, it's certainly going to help a better score for listenability. Yes, nicely done. All right. Any other questions we can quickly answer before we go? Maybe questions for Brian so we can let him off the hook here.
I got that.
Perfect. Okay. We have a question here saying, is there a penalty if you stop speaking before the time elapses? Depends on when you stop speaking. So if it's a 60-second recording time, you want to get close to that. So 52, 53 seconds might be acceptable, provided you've given so much detail and the response has been completely answered. If, on the other hand, you speak for about 40 seconds, even though the response was going well, you're giving away 20 seconds of that recording time, which is pretty significant. So you would be penalized in that case under task fulfillment, which is where the time is scored. Also, I'm going to suggest that if you're giving away 20 seconds, that would be enough time for a whole other idea with supporting points and vocabulary to demonstrate. So if you're speaking for almost half the time, you're probably not going to score as well in those other areas either. So I think for the speaking time, the best approach is just to say, I've been given 60 seconds. It's up to me to demonstrate the best skills I can in those 4 areas that I know are going to earn me the best score possible. So think of it that way, rather than look at it as a time constraint. Maybe look at it as an opportunity to really showcase what I can do when I speak. I think that's the better approach. It's a more positive mindset. Ryan, what would you add to that? Is there anything else?
Similar kind of thing, like it's an opportunity to share more. One of the things that was a great early improv teacher gave me is just the phrasing, the difference in your mind of get to and have to. Like, I have to do this scene, or I get to do this scene. I have to talk about this. I get to talk about this. Having that kind of mindset really makes it more fulfilling for you.
Yeah. And it helps with nerves too, because again, it's completely normal to be nervous when you're giving a speaking test or any test. But when you approach it this way, like, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to give it my all, I've prepared, I'm ready. It might sound a bit corny to some people, but I'm also a firm believer in that positive mindset. And I think when you tell yourself you can and will do this, good things are going to happen for you eventually anyway. Yeah. And more insight here. I think they liked the background idea today too. Yeah, I'm glad that we emphasized that and demonstrated through introductions what you can do. So as Brian says, sort of what's happened right before you're talking to this couple, set the stage, give the answer, and then conclude. Very well done. Great questions today from our audience. Thank you so much for doing that. We'll do one last call for questions. And if we don't see any, we will wind down the episode. I think we're good here. One question from Vivian, just at the very bottom, if our producers can maybe put that up. Perfect. There is going to be a timer on your computer screen during the test. It's not going to take up the whole screen like we did today, but on your computer screen in the top right-hand corner is going to be the initial timer. And then when you actually are speaking on the test, you're going to see that right in the middle of your screen. Yeah. So you're always going to know when the speaking time is almost finished. So keep an eye, like you really do have to keep an eye on your notes to keep you on track. Look up at the timer just now and then to make sure you're finishing up, and try to wind down right before the time is up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good question. You have to know what the computer screens look like. And by the way, we've got 2 free practice tests. Vivian says she's new to CELPIP. So go to cellpip.ca, and right on the website, there's a whole section for free prep, and you'll find 2 free practice tests. You'll hear Brian's voice narrating the instructions in the practice test. You'll see Brian's videos for the listening and so on. So you will recognize him now that you've seen today's episode. But you'll see exactly what the computer screens look like. The practice tests are exactly like the real test as far as how the screens are formatted. So a really nice way to be comfortable. Yeah.
And when you're doing practice tests or the real test, yes, it'll be me saying, now click next, now move forward. And I want you to know that I believe you, and I believe in you, and I want to see you do well. So when you hear my voice, know that I'm on your side. We want to see you moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today, Brian. Again, it was fantastic to actually work with you other than have your voice in my videos when I'm teaching. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it so much. And I hope you have a fantastic week ahead. Maybe we'll get to collaborate again another time. That would be fun.
Nice.
All right. Take care, Brian. Bye-bye. All right. So again, thank you, viewers, for being with us today. And a special thank you to our guest, Brian. We've got some great tips, I hope, to send the rest of you home with to study moving forward. Before we log off, I have not forgotten the answer to the trivia question. So let's have a look again at the question. Our question was, what is the official word for the sound of leaves and trees rustling in the wind? Here's your answer. It's a tough one today. The answer is, it's pronounced Scythurism, right? So this is a new word for me too, by the way. It's probably a new word for you. Not surprised. I don't think we had anybody answer this in the chat box. But here you have it, a new word that perhaps you can use moving forward. All right, and we are getting some thank yous. B&B, yeah, Brian and Brandy, thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to our channel here on the bell icon, because you'll always be notified about when our next episodes are moving forward. So that wraps it up for today. We will be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.